Hi, friends. Welcome to Charlie and Steve Watch Stuff, where today we are watching Challengers. My name's Steve Selnick, and joining me, as always, he's taking such good care of his two little white boys. It's my good friend, Charlie Peppers. Charlie, how are you doing today?
Doing well, and not you reading my dating history.
Yes. Oh, incredible. Well, what started as a sort of offhanded joke at the beginning of our last X-Men 97 podcast with him, the other side of my tennis match today, take that as you will, we would like to welcome back to the podcast yet again our returning regular at this point, Ian Carlos Crawford from Slayerfest. Ian, thanks for being here again. What a great excuse to come together.
Thank you
again.
Thank
literally.
you for having me. I love that a stupid joke I made in our last recording led to this. I've been wanting to watch this, but especially when you're recording, it's like, well, I'll watch. I think I'm going to record for it. I didn't have a recording set up, and then this gave me a reason to watch it.
I love it. Well, we're happy to also have the
Yeah, when I was watching it, you definitely came to mind a couple of times because we did do the Saltburn pod. I was like, oh my God, I want all of Ian's thoughts on not just like the homoeroticism of it all, but just the very, I don't know, what's the term for that? The term, when somebody's getting cucked, I think this movie has a lot of cuckolding. Is it pronunciated cuckolding? Yeah. Challengers, cuckolding boogaloo, electric boogaloo.
Not us also exposing our browser history in a podcast. Anyway, we're here to talk about the movie Challengers. We're taking a break from our cartoon superhero content to bring, I don't even know what the fuck this is, but we're going to talk about it, and it was a heck of an adventure. Challengers, the film, released on April 26, 2024. In some places, you can still catch it in theaters. If maybe this is the thing that tips you in that direction to go and see it, who knows? It was written by Justin Kuritzkis and directed by Luca Guadagnino. And the plot of the movie is Tashi, a former tennis prodigy turned coach, turned her husband into a champion. But to overcome a losing streak, he needs to face his ex-best friend and Tashi's ex-boyfriend. And we're gonna just kind of, I just went for tee off, which is not the right sports allegory, but that's the one I'm gonna go with. Yeah, we're gonna go with the opening processions here, and we're gonna hand it off to our head judge, our head referee, Charlie, to take us through this one. So Charlie, take it away.
Happily. In 2006, friends Patrick Zweig and Art Donaldson win the boys' junior doubles title at the U.S. Open. They watch a match played by Tashi Duncan, a rising tennis star with whom Patrick and Art become infatuated. So, boys, what did we think of Patrick and Art's fascination with Tashi? Did it seem like they were just into her clout and the aura of celebrity around her and her promise? I have my thoughts about this, but I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts about it.
I've been thinking about the Tashi of it all a lot because I don't know. I want to be her. In my heart, that's who I want to be. Someone who does not give a shit about any of these stupid men, but can have them fight over her. And these hot men who want to fuck her. And she's like, I don't really care. Ooh, make out for me. Yeah, that's cute. All right, I'm leaving. That's what I want to be, but I know that's not who I am. But I kept wondering, because, right, it's there's a million hot people in tennis, and it felt weird that they landed on her as a child, as they were teens or whatever the hell they're supposed to be. And then as adults, we're still doing that. And so I don't know. I don't think she ever gave a shit about either of them. I really don't think she did. I feel like she's hot, she's confident, she knows what she wants, and she's a little mean, but she's pretty upfront about it. So, I don't know, I felt like I kept thinking about the Tashi of it all, and I have some other opinions, but Steve, what did you say?
Well, I guess I get to give the resident, if a girl talked to me like that, I would chase harder, basically, especially at that age, for someone that hot and that good at what they're doing. But I think what's interesting is right before that, when they win the doubles tournament, you can tell that the relationship is best friend plus. There's a little bit extra juice to their physical relationship. So then them suddenly being interested in the same girl is an interesting wrinkle to that, because they just seem closer than that, but maybe they don't realize it, and maybe they're supposed to be liking. I mean, it's 2006, so it's not as like open 2024. Everyone is very much so more welcome to be on TikTok and figure out who the fuck they are. Less of that in 2006, and maybe a little bit more, hey, yeah, maybe I feel this way about my best friend a little bit, but this is who I'm supposed to be looking at and wanting in a way. They're laying the seeds for what happens next, basically.
Right.
Yeah, it almost feels a little bit of that thing of when you have a subconscious yearning or attraction to somebody, you kind of project onto the person who's the object of their desire. And I think in this dynamic, because later our boy Patrick definitely becomes a chaotic bisexual, that's what he's giving, because of that moment on Tinder that we saw. I think that Art probably had a bit more of a, oh, who's that? And Patrick felt it before, but he leaned into it more once he saw how interested Art was. I think that there's some kind of psychosexual underpinnings happening that they likely aren't aware of.
I have been in friendships like this with straight men back in like 2006, 2008. And I always I read recently with X-Men 97, right? You all finished that, covering that too. You know, there's like the morph of it all at the end. And a lot of people felt they didn't like that. They didn't want Morph to be in love with this guy. I liked it because it's like, okay, well, there are no other gay people on this team, so that's going to happen. I often think sometimes people want to villainize that trope because, yes, it sucks, but it does happen. And I feel like that's realistic. I feel like Art had no interest in Patrick. Patrick had interest in Art. And I think Art is kind of like, whatever, Patrick's like my best guy. But like, that's why Art is able to get away from him and not give a shit. Art is able to leave with Tashi. They have a family. He doesn't talk to him anymore and he doesn't care. Patrick still does. So I feel like Patrick is the one. I think Patrick likes Tashi because he wants to fuck Art. And that's like the connector. Like, he was like, well, I can make out with Art if we fuck Tashi. So like, now I'm more obsessed with her. I think in another world, Patrick would have stopped being obsessed with Tashi. But because of the art of it all, it was like he latched onto her as a way to get, like, fucking Tashi was like the next best thing to fucking Art. And, you know, it's almost like Patrick is here, Art is here, and Tashi is here, and she knows what's going on. I think she's fully aware. Like, she's a lot smarter. So I think she knows. I think that's why when they make out and she's like this, but then she's like, all right, I'm leaving. Because she kind of understands that, like, only really one of them wants to have sex with her. The other one wants to have sex with the guy. And while I've never had, like, fully that something like that happen, I did once hook up with a girl and a straight friend. And she said to me, he's only here because this is an easy way to not be gay and still suck your dick. Like, she said that to me. And that's what I kept thinking with this. She was like, that's an easy way for him to experiment and not feel gay. And I was like, I didn't think about that, but that's why I was there. So, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting too much.
Weird place to unpack that, lady.
No. And
Yeah.
her saying that was probably part of her enjoyment of what she got out of the situation. Because I think that there was a part, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but if our listeners are here and they've already watched the movie, they probably also have the scene seared into their brains. The way that kiss happened between Art and Patrick, that was the kind of, and I went to see this movie with my boyfriend Cody, and we both said the same thing. That's the way you make out with somebody when you're about to, like, fuck. Like, that was a very, like, oh, we're into this. But the second that Tashi left, I found it very curious that they were just like, bummer, the girl left.
Yeah, and like, so people on Twitter were criticizing the kiss, saying it looked awkward, but I agree with you, Charlie. I think it's more of like a feral makeout, where it's like, we are so fucking horny, we're just kind of like mushing our faces together. And like, I don't know, I feel like that's a real thing, right? Like, yeah, your kissing isn't that good because you just want to like fuck. And that's what you're like thinking about. And for me, it's also awkward because it's the first time they've kissed, right? Like, we know that they have not been involved. So it makes sense their first kiss would be awkward, but also might be like super fucking horny. So it's like, I think if Tashi had stayed, they all would have ripped each other's clothes off and like gone at it. And I think Art would be okay with Patrick like sucking his dick or whatever because it's like not gay because Tashi's there. Steve, what do you think as the straight in this love triangle?
That's so funny. This was the moment I was going to credit with one of the most effective misdirects via marketing I think I've ever seen in a long time, because the trailer makes you think that Tashi kisses one and then she kisses the other and then they each kiss her neck and then they both go down out of screen. So you think that they're both going down there, but in actuality, that's about the moment where they're about to, like in that moment where she's laying back and giving the like evil eyes up at the camera, you think that's because these two guys are going down on her, but it's actually her watching them make out with each other, which I think is a fucking brilliant misdirect via the trailers that went out. Because I even remember like seeing reactions to the trailer being like Tom Holland watching the Challengers trailer, like punching air and stuff like that. But it was a really good misdirect. I think half the theater that I was in didn't understand what was going to happen there. And yeah, I think that, I mean, talk about laying the groundwork for unspoken feelings between two people and Tashi seeing it and coercing them into it and then being able to kind of subvert the expectations that you were given by the trailer. It was a brilliant scene.
Wait, Charlie, did you also think that? Because I didn't think that.
Oh, I didn't think that at all. Hold on.
Oh, I totally thought that.
Hold on. Let me make sure I understand your question, Ian. Did I think after watching the trailer that they like double cunnilingus her? Yeah. No, I didn't. Actually, when I went to see Barbie last summer and the Challengers trailer came on, after that like scene of the three of them on bed, the audience got quiet and you just hear somebody in the back of the audience go, okay. And the person who went, okay, that was me.
It was you.
I was like, okay, Zendaya.
But in the trailer, the men don't kiss each other.
They don't.
But they get close. So I literally, but also this could be all of us projecting, right? I always was like, oh, she's having fun watching these boys go at it, is what I took that as. Because, like, I have also made that face, like, Ian in a threesome loves his partner to, like, watch his partner hook up with someone else. Like, that is, in a threesome, I think that's really hot. I know some people don't, like, you know, whatever anyone likes. But so because I have that in my brain, I'm like, oh, that's hot. I was like, oh, she thinks it's hot because she's getting the boys to, like, hook up or maybe like blow each other or fuck or whatever. Like I thought something was going on with the boys. I will say I kind of expected a little bit more. So I have a like maybe stupid hot take about this is that, I don't know, everyone was talking about how horny and hot it was. And this scene is like, this hookup scene is fucking hot. It's hot. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But like, that's kind of it. And then you get an hour and a half more of this without any, like...
No, we did. I think, all right, the scene is very hot, yes, and there's also another scene coming up that I think is even hotter, that when we get to it, I'll be like, okay, this was... And it's involving a food item. Patrick hold out the churro and Art's, like, biting into it. And they're just holding eye contact with each other while it's happening. I'm like, if that happened between me and somebody else, I'm like, okay, let's call the Uber. Let's clear the rest of our schedules. I'm gonna go.
Well, so that tracks on what I said before with the way that they leap into each other's arms when they win the Junior Open. Like, I just think that they don't get that that's what they're doing.
I think Patrick does. I think
Patrick's in touch. Okay, sure. I think Art
is just fucking clueless.
Yeah, I think
he's clueless, but also not down. That's my take.
Yes.
That's my take. I don't think that this is like a situation like in Saltburn where one is obsessed with the other and the other is just kind of like, what? Okay, maybe if I'm drunk. I think that this is a lot more deep and layered and a little bit more reciprocal on some levels, but not all levels, because like you said, Ian, Art was very easily able to just snip and cut Patrick out of his life, but Patrick was very, very into just whatever the vibe of this was.
And I also have had that happen where like a straight guy and I have this like almost where people are like, are you guys sure you're not fucking? And I'm like, no, blah, blah, blah. But then once they get a partner, it's like, who? And like, you know, I feel like that happens. And so for me, that's another reason why Art read as like, you know, like I said, I think he would have let Patrick blow him if they were with Tashi in bed. I don't think he would have let Patrick blow him if Tashi was not there. Like, I think then he would have been like, what are you doing? But other than that, I do think, yeah, he might have been down. And there was, like, I do think there was some, like, right, it was reciprocal in the, like, when they are together way, but, like, Patrick would have been fine with that. And Art would not have been. Like, Art would not have been content with just them being their relationship in his life, and Patrick would have been.
Yeah. All right, we do need to move on to the rest of the movie, but another point I want to make is that it is 2006. So I think that is, like, people are still, like, wearing Live Strong bracelets, like, unironically. It's fucking 2006.
I'd like to point out that this is not a Live Strong bracelet. This is a bracelet in memory of my friend. And
no judgment. Baby, even if it was, I'm gonna love you regardless. I'm gonna love you. I mean, we're gonna have some conversations about Armstrong after that, but yeah, you're all good. I wore one. Okay.
We adore our straight.
Yeah, absolutely. You're all good. Oh man.
I'm catching L's in this podcast.
Oh, you shut him out. After meeting at a party, Tashi joins Art and Patrick in their hotel room, where all three kiss before Tashi abruptly ends the tryst. She promises to give her phone number to whomever wins the final the next day. So, from a writing perspective, I think the conceit of the movie and the challenge and challengers is set right here. I love that it always comes back to Tashi being impressed or seeing which one of them is going to impress her the most. I think her leaving and saying whichever one of you wins is going to get my number was setting up the power dynamic and the chokehold that she's going to have over these men for the next decade plus or so of the film. So I thought that was a very key indicator of, like, this is what she's about. It's always about tennis, and tennis is kind of, I don't know, it's just like she's aware of the power.
Tennis is kind of,
my God, I'm trying to think of the word. It's like, is aphrodisiac the right word?
One of the two things that I wanted to say is that she, either in this scene or right before it at the fire, she calls tennis a relationship. And I think it was at the fire because she's talking about her match against Anna Muller. And she's like, you guys don't know what tennis is. And Patrick asks her what it is. And she goes, it's a relationship. And he goes, is that what you and Anna Muller had today? And she goes, it is actually. For about 15 seconds there, we were actually playing tennis and we understood each other completely. So did everyone watching. It was like we were in love, or like we didn't exist. We went somewhere really beautiful together. A, that's foreshadowing for the end of the movie. And B, I think that's just her worldview. I think that tennis is the most important thing to her, and who she can have the greatest relationship on the tennis court with is, in her eyes, her soulmate. So by her saying, whoever wins out of you two, I'm deciding that's the person that I want to date because you're the better tennis player. And that's the relationship that I give a shit about.
Yeah, if you get tennis, you get me, and you understand me. I want to add on to what you said. For some reason, when you said they get locked in about 15 seconds, they understand each other completely. Have you ever seen the Disney Pixar movie Soul? There's this concept of someone being in a flow state or in the zone. And when somebody who is dead watches a person experience that, like if somebody gets choked up while they're reading their poetry or they're playing the piano really passionately, their soul kind of goes out of their body a little bit and goes into the nether realm because they're tapping into something greater than themselves by tapping into their passion. And I think that if Tashi were in the movie Soul, when she's playing tennis, that would be her entering her flow state and just kind of going into the nether realm a little bit. I think that it feels very spiritual for her. It feels akin to worship and akin to just touching something a little bit more celestial. I think what that piece of dialogue was getting at. And hey, look, we're talking about it. And I didn't have that thought before what you said, Steve.
I mean, for me, I'm like, I agree because I feel like that's what I meant when I was like, she doesn't really give a shit about them because I don't think she does. And I think it is because, and that's not a judgment either way. I wish I was like, I want to be like that. Like, I want to be like, ugh, whatever, stupid. Like, I'll date whoever. I wouldn't fucking care. And like, there's a part of me that is like that kind of because I don't care about dating that much. And people will be like, oh, I'm sure, blah, blah, blah. You wish you had I'm like, I don't really wish I had a boyfriend. I would like someone that I'm hanging out with a lot, but like, do I want a boyfriend? Like, I like doing my stupid podcast. I like going to bed and having a bunch of pillows. Like, I like not sharing. And so, like, I think she was very upfront with who she was from the start, and the two men were not. That's not to say she's not an asshole, because she also is an asshole, but, like, that's okay. Yeah, I think very much her being, like, whoever wins gets to date me shows that, like, tennis is her one true love. Because doesn't, after she say for 15 seconds we were in a relationship, doesn't she then say she hated that woman? Wasn't that the woman where she's like, but also she's crazy and a racist, so I hate her? And like, for me, that like also tells us how tough she is, right? Because she's like, yes, for those 15 seconds, this woman and I were connected, blah, blah, but I fucking hate her and she's a dickhead. So I feel like that also, the fact that she felt that way with this person that she hates shows you that she does care more about the tennis than the human interactions.
Great point.
Very solid point. Patrick wins the match and later signals to Art that he had sex with Tashi by placing the ball on the neck of the racket prior to serving a tick of Art's. I love how this tick is going to play a much larger role in the film later. Have you ever had a friend who you were in competition with to get with somebody either romantically or sexually, and they beat you to it and they kind of rubbed it in your face a little bit? Has that happened to either one of you?
That's essentially the relationship I had with my best friend growing up through middle school and high school. So
Nerd.
Shout out to Justin. Yeah, we dated a lot of the same girls throughout high school specifically.
I think with me, I'm sounding a lot more confident than I actually am. So please, no one get the like crazy like notion that I'm this like overconfident like person who, has men throwing themselves, because that's not me. I will say that anytime there's been a competition, usually I remove myself immediately. I'm like, I don't care. You two have it. Oftentimes that makes the person then gravitate more towards me, but I don't do it for that. I do that because I fucking don't care. I'm like, the moment there's like a love, unless we're all gonna have a threesome, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm like very like, remove me from this. My last boyfriend, that's what happened actually. There was a friend of mine who liked him. We both liked him. That friend was one of the craziest people I've ever had in my life. My now ex was like, hey, I just like, I'm being honest with you, so-and-so said he also has feelings for me and I'm just in a spot where I don't know what to do. And I said, I'll make that decision for you. Remove me from this. I'm not competing. And then he was my boyfriend. But I genuinely did not do that thinking like, well, this'll get him. It's because I genuinely am like, I'm not doing this. So I've never actually like had that, because I will be the one that's like, I'm done here. And I know that I actually have had a lot of gay friends that will be like competitive like that. But Charlie, I'm curious your answer.
Oh my God, I don't know if I've ever unpacked this within myself. Look at me asking a question I don't know the answer to for myself. I would say that when it comes to that energy, here's how I usually show up in those spaces. I'm like, all right, friends, who do we think is cute? Okay, you think he's cute? All right, he's kind of cute. Go talk to him. Oh, that was nice. I think he wants to make out with you. I think that I am kind of Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream that way, kind of in how I go about romantically.
You are chaotic.
Instigating things in like bar settings. I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's cool. I want everybody to be happy, and I don't have well, maybe I did when I was younger. I don't have this finite belief of there's only one person that is a match for everybody. I think that everyone has multiple matches, and I just like your friends don't fulfill every need of yours. I think that sometimes when you're out in a bar or a club setting, there are different people who would catch your attention for a number of reasons. And if someone that I'm interested in isn't giving me energy, I would just float to the next person. I don't give a fuck. It is what it is. Especially, I think that the least sexy thing you could do is not read someone's energy if they're not vibing with you. That tends to keep me safe. I tend to really pick up on if it's not a vibe and just move to the next, which, like you, Ian, does have very interesting results. But that is all I will say.
But what if the vibe is there and you both feel the vibe? All three of you are feeling the vibe.
Oh, well, I can't say that on the pod, but there have been many good nights.
Come on.
Many good nights.
Maybe I'll do the answer to that in a second.
I as I was saying it, I was like, well, I'm setting this one up.
Yeah. Oh, man.
To quickly answer Ian's question from when I had to deal with that in high school, I think that's the reason why I listen to so much Yellow Card still, honestly. We got emo because of it, which just, if that gives you any indication, that I did not win most of the time. So I think I similarly, maybe I tried too hard is actually probably my issue. So maybe I should have tried more of your reverse psychology by accident.
I was gonna say, it's not on purpose, yes. Steve, you would have won with me or Charlie.
You're winning with us now.
That continues.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's you just listed reason A through Z why I only teach fitness classes in the Castro. So I do know that.
Listen, motherfucker, don't get too cocky.
Oh, man. Okay, so later, Tashi and Art play college tennis at Stanford University, while Patrick turns professional and begins a long-distance relationship with Tashi. Art suggests to Tashi that Patrick does not love her. When Patrick visits Stanford, Art similarly suggests to him that Tashi does not take the relationship seriously. I gotta hand it to Art. I think that Art is doing some great Rome level politicking. He's being weaselly, and I love that Patrick clocks him being weaselly and is like, look at you. That was interesting.
Another reason why that lends more to my theory of Patrick was a lot more aware of what's going on, because Patrick, at first I was like, is he being sarcastic? No, he's not. He genuinely likes, and I think it's because he liked that Art cared that much, that it bothered Art so much, Patrick could make that in his head be because he cares about me, because he cares about this competition between us, and we have this competition, and it's still going, but Art was genuinely just trying to get to Tashi and break them up. He wasn't going to try to fuck Patrick, but I think that's why Patrick liked it. And I kind of love that he picked up on it immediately, called him out on it, and was like, no, I appreciate it. Puts his arm around him, is like, I love that you're doing this. I was like, all right. I genuinely thought, is he plotting something? And no, he just appreciated it.
Yeah,
whatever.
Offered him a churro, let him bite into it. Yeah. I think, honestly, that churro moment...
Move the seat.
I thought that moment was hotter than the makeout scene. Because it was one, it's a phallic object that's edible, and who doesn't love cinnamon and sugar together? And just them getting super close. I'm like, oh, this is I wonder if Art was aware of what Patrick was doing. It was very...
For me, again, that blends it to, yeah, I'd let him suck my dick, but
yeah.
Okay. Because it was an intimate moment. And you can have intimate moments, friendship. You can, right? Me and my straight best friend, there is nothing sexual at all. He is my brother. And I've had friends be like, so you secretly have hooked up, right? I'm like, no, I haven't. He's my brother. We love each other. And I've had other friends misinterpret that intimacy, but it really is we're just super comfortable with each other, so we don't care. So I even sometimes in media have to remind myself, well, people have thought you and your best friend. His ex-girlfriend, when we were all drunk once, put her arm around both of us and was like, tell me, you guys have fucked at least once, right? And we were like, no. And she was like, you can tell me, I won't be mad. And we were like, no, we never have.
She would have been mad for sure.
She absolutely would have been.
She would.
Yeah. And I think about that because that caught me so off guard when she said that. And I was like, the hell is she talking about? So I even when I'm watching media, I have to remind myself there are friendships that are super intimate, that there isn't a sexual thing. But here I do.
Mm-hmm.
At least on Patrick's end.
Yeah. I just find it interesting. Steve, what did you think of that moment?
I just loved the glee in Patrick's voice when he just pulls him in and he goes, "You fucking snake." He was just like, "Oh yeah, game is on." Like, I see it right away. It was super fun. It's funny that we're talking about this sequentially rather than the fact that the film jumps around a bunch between the match that's happening and these flashbacks that kind of correlate with the score of the match. I find myself liking this movie more because we're talking about it sequentially, which I don't know if that's a detriment to
No.
but we can talk about it when we get there.
I will say that drove me nuts. The ping-ponging back and forth, because it also and I wasn't even looking at my phone, but if I looked away, I would have missed a flashback, and there was no good indicator that it was a flashback. They look the same, they're still the same, and I get it, they're not going to put them in stupid wigs or makeup or whatever, but they all look the same, so if I missed the wording, I'd be like, wait, what the fuck is this? And it didn't matter that much.
Super subtle differences.
Yeah. So that, for me, that was super distracting. And I liked the movie. This isn't I felt like those weren't interesting enough for them to be so many interspliced. If it was I don't know, back in 2006 when, aliens invaded Earth and we're flashing back to that, it's okay, I get it. That's the action is happening there. That is a distinct setting that is very different. And now I sound I feel then it's ooh, you're a Marvel movie fan. But I don't even mean that I wanted that for this. I just mean to be going back and forth there. For me, there has to be an interesting reason, and there wasn't quite enough. And I would have liked this sequentially. I don't know. I even thought starting with already her being married to him was a bad idea. I was I don't like that I know that she already ends up with Art, because it took the attention out for me. I was well, Patrick's all just wanting to fuck Art. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And that's how I read it from the start through. There was no point where it was an epiphany. It was okay.
Very interesting, very layered. We're creeping up on the present time of this movie, so I'm excited to get to more of that stuff. Tashi and Patrick have an argument over her attempts to coach Patrick in tennis, and Patrick skips her match as a result. While playing, Tashi tears her ACL. Patrick comes to see Tashi, but Tashi demands he leave. Art sides with her, ending the friendship with Patrick. Art aids in Tashi's recovery, but she is too injured to resume her tennis career. You know what? I gotta be real. I did not like her character in this.
She's an asshole. She's a total asshole.
She's an asshole, but we only really see her in scenes with people that she's an asshole to. I think that there is a missing character here where I wanted to just see a different side of her. Every character that she is in a scene with has either been trying to fuck her, they're married to her, they're obsessed with her, they want to be with her husband, it's her child, it's the mother or mother-in-law or somebody who works for her. I think that a scene that's missing from this that would have been cool would have been Tashi by herself at a bar and somebody recognizes her, another woman who's a big fan, and it's kind of just oh my god, what was that like? Just what was it like to play tennis in your heyday or something like that? I feel like I never saw her light up, and I never saw in her character the feeling she described of getting lost on the field. It felt like there was just no one home. The most that I liked her was when Patrick and Art first noticed her from afar.
I don't disagree with you. I thought that with her mom, that was her mom, though. It was her mom.
I think so.
Because Patrick later says, your mom looks great. And she's like, I know. And then walks away. I thought the scenes with her and her mom and her kids were those. For me, those were those scenes of showing her she was good with her kids. She was, loving with them. She was just very hard. I don't know. No, Steve, maybe just speak to this, but I will say friend-wise, I am attracted to that type of woman for at least friendship. I'm
yeah.
Yes, you will just tell me what to do and I will fucking listen. You look gorgeous. You're kind of mean. You're confident. You're smart. That is the type of person I like being friends with. That is the type of woman I end up being friends with because I gravitate towards that. And I think Tashi probably would have had a gay friend that she was nicer to than either Patrick or Art.
Absolutely. She definitely has talked about their dynamic to that gay friend. Has been
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's so interesting? Don't fucking tell anybody. We were in this hotel room and I could totally see that there was like a, but then I ended up marrying Art. So here we are. All right, that conversation also would have been fun to see, like her impression, because they never talk about it. That would have been cool to bring up.
Well, so not the ex I thought, a different ex had a best friend that was like in love with him so badly that her and her husband got divorced, and he said, "You love insert X's name more than me," and she said yes, and like that led to their divorce. And she was mean. She hated me because I was fucking him and she was not, and like she was totally mean to me every time we like saw each other. She came into my work when I was working at Barnes & Noble and like didn't speak to me until her child came over and recognized me, and I was like, "Hey," and she was like, "Oh, hi." Like, I could not believe how nice she was to my ex because she was mean to everyone else around her. And that's what I kept thinking of with Tashi. I was like, oh, because she's nice to her kids, and this woman was a good mother to her daughter, but not nice to anyone else in her orbit. And that's what I felt like with Tashi. But you're right. I would have liked to see her with any friend where she's talking about them, because you're right. I bet she would be like, well, these boys, they were about to fuck each other. And then I laughed because whatever.
You know that Tashi is definitely on Reddit and like spilling tea. It's like, all right, so I am female, such an age, and my husband and one of his former friends, we cut him off, but blah, blah, blah. What do you all think? And got a bunch of like comments and upvotes, but I digress. In 2009, Tashi reconnects with Art, becoming his coach and girlfriend. In 2011, Tashi and Art are now engaged, and Art's career is on the rise. Tashi and Patrick run into each other at the Atlanta Open and have a one-night stand, which Art notices. Boys, what did we think of this period of time? Like, also, why did they get married? Like, it feels like a very political marriage, like it has arranged energy around it.
But to her, not to him.
Yeah.
Which is weird, yeah. I don't know how you even kept track of those dates, because I was like, where are we when they fucked? I could not, like, when they fucked, I was like, wait, is this present day? Like, what year is, like, I could not keep track of where we were in the timeline of the movie at that point, because that was like a flashback in a flashback, wasn't it? Because it was like, yeah, this is all stuff I would have cut out of the movie. Like, this, I felt like, was where I kind of started to dip a little bit, where I was like, all right, come on.
Yeah, Steve?
I don't know why we had it. I just like, maybe just so it was basically, yes, I do know why we had it, is so they could make the ending of the movie more dramatic, because it connects, like, this moment is connected back to a couple different times when we move forward. I can see why they're married, because Art's so obsessed with Tashi that I feel like the only way that he would let her be his coach if they were like quote unquote romantically involved with each other, and I'm sure she could fake it enough to, like, that's the only route for her dreams. I think we discount the fact that, like, Tashi was going to be the greatest.
Yeah.
They say at one point that Anna Muller, someone that she handled in, like, straight sets, just won her, like, I think she was in this scene. She's watching a television, basically being like, Anna Muller just won her, like, multiple Wimbledon. No one's able to challenge her, and basically being like, this should have been me.
Yeah.
It was going to be me, and that's all crumbled away. So she's gone down the only road that she sees for the best tennis. Like, everything is back to her tennis relationship for her. It's, I can't be the greatest, so how can I make this person the greatest? And I know that this person will listen to me in a way that my ex-boyfriend wouldn't listen to me, which we, like, also sort of skipped over. Like, he just wanted to fuck, and she wanted to talk about his serve. And so, like, that's constantly the priority in her life. Maybe she was just feeling a low moment and feeling sorry for herself in the way that her tennis life had developed. And so she decided to go and fuck this dude because she felt low. Maybe that's the only bridge that I can make, because there's no tennis move. Like, for Tashi, in my mind, everything comes down to what's the tennis move. And that's why his offer later in the movie is so enticing to her, because it's a tennis offer. It's not a relationship offer.
And I think he knows that. When he
finally figures that out. And maybe that's another thing that we're realizing, or that I'm realizing right now, is that he sees her low because of her tennis life, and he swoops in that moment to take advantage of it. Maybe we're not giving Patrick enough credit in that moment.
Also, I mean, this is going to sound extremely slutty. I'm also a person that sometimes I'm like, oh, whatever, I can just fuck this person. Like, there's been many situations where I'm like not really interested, and I don't mean this, there's no consent issue. I am very much like, sure. And like, I'm not really that into it, but it's like, we're here, sure, whatever. I have like fully been that person, and that's how I read her, where like she did want to talk tennis, but she was like, yeah, I can fuck you, whatever.
Well, one, I want to give Zendaya her flowers because watching this after watching Dune 2, which I liked her better in Dune 2 because I think that was the better movie, because Dune 2 was just incredible, but also this character and her fully committing to this career monster who is so laser focused that everything else is kind of in her way or distraction. I think that takes someone talented to play, and I think she did it really well. Yeah, she was a fucking beast in this movie. I think when she connected to Patrick, I think in a way what he said, I think that he kind of still has some power over her, because their argument that they had in the dorm room the last time they had sex before this time was going on in her head before she had her injury. So I think what he said threw her so much that it led to her to slip up. It was essentially about control. Like, you can't control me. I know what this is. I'm not going to be a fucking simp for you. And I think that on some level did get into her brain a little bit.
That's fair, because I did think she was already an asshole. Like, I thought she was being an asshole. So I don't, because I'm like, was she getting harder as it was going along? Was it supposed to be she used to be like more like easy breezy? Or is like this how she always was? Because I kept thinking like, oh, the accident made her harder. And then I remembered that like, no, that flashback takes place before she has an accident. So like, she was kind of always just fully hyper-focused on tennis. So I don't know. I don't know. Also, I know we talk about how hot the men are. Everyone is so hot in this movie. I was even like, oh, she looks great. And that's the dorm room.
Yeah. They all...
I'll say it for you, Steve.
No, I agree.
Or Steve can say the straight dude thing whenever a straight guy finds another guy attractive. That's a good looking dude. Like, I feel like that's how men, that's how straight men say like good looking men. They're like, it's good looking dude.
My straight trainer said that. He was like, yeah, you're a good looking dude. And I was like, I know what that means in straight lingo.
Yeah. It is a sincere compliment, but like, dude, I think putting the dude, I can't believe we're talking about this, putting dude at the end like desexualizes it. It does something to it. So like the good looking is almost a little like not threatening.
We have Keenan from Good Burger.
Yeah,
for his absolute blanket use of dude in all of that.
That's why I still use dude too much, maybe.
I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, and we're all dudes. Hey, that's literally the song.
Oh man. All right, so speaking of dudes, in 2019, Tashi and Art are a wealthy power couple with a young daughter. Art is only one U.S. Open title away from a career Grand Slam, but has been struggling due to injury and age. Tashi enters Art as a wild card in a challenger event in New Rochelle, New York, hoping to boost his confidence and return him to form. Patrick, who is living out of his car, we'll unpack that later, because the fuck, and scrapping by on winnings from the lower circuits, happens to enter New Rochelle Challenger as well. I'm going to say this before I forget. That line of Tashi looking at Patrick and being like, what are you, cosplaying as an unhoused person? Living in your car, your parents have money. I wish that would have been explored a little bit more, because it was the first thing about Patrick's character outside of Art and Tashi that really made my ears perk up. Like, I wonder what that's about. I wonder what's going on with him and his parents. What did you think of skipping ahead and just seeing him in this state and them in this, it appears, loveless marriage?
I again, this is where my interest again started to dip here. But I was curious. I was like, what did I miss? And I'm glad I didn't miss anything. I thought I missed, when she said that line, I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I thought there was something that I missed, but there wasn't. That was like we didn't like address any of that, right?
No.
Okay. I really was like, I must have missed something, because I was like, oh, he's like genuinely like, struggling with money issues. And then when she said that, I was like, is she being sarcastic? Like, what? So I would have liked to see that explored. I don't find a loveless marriage. I know this whole movie, the thing I can say about it, all of this reminded me of a book I would have read when I was in grad school and would have fucking loved. Like, I would have loved this. I would have thought it was like, the homoeroticism would have really got me. Whereas now at like 41, I'm like, just suck a dick or don't. Like, come on. And like, but this was a book. I would have loved this book as a like 23-year-old grad student. I found all that really dumb.
Well, it dragged on. And
Yeah.
when actors are playing a lack of passion, which I think Zendaya was playing in her scenes with Art, she played it so well that I wasn't passionate about the scene. And I think that kind of weirdly made me not care for her character, because the thing that she cared about so much was taken away from her. Cody did have to wake me up a little bit at this point, because I started to doze off. I was like, but I did really appreciate the scene of Patrick on a date. Oh my God, this scene, this poor woman.
I know.
Oh man, he's on a date with her, barely paying attention, leaves her to talk to Tashi, then comes back, makes out with her so that he has somewhere to crash for the night, and she is just like, okay.
The look on her
face. She was aware of what was happening.
Doesn't even explain.
Because at first it looked like she was going to deny him, right? Because she was like,
Yeah.
And then she was kind of like, all right, sure.
Well, I mean, maybe if it's just going to be a hit and quit, look, girl, I get it.
Right.
I get it. Get that lady nut.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. It's very vital. But
I would put an exorbitant amount of money on that she did not get one lady nut through that experience. I would put a lot of money on the under for whatever that was set at.
Yes,
I don't think Patrick's doing that.
oh no. Oh no.
I would have liked to know what was going on with Patrick, because I did feel bad for him. But then when she said that, I wasn't sure if like she was just you saying it, I'm like, no, I think she was being honest. Like, she knew that he had family money, but don't they mention like pushing 40 at one point? I think they do, that they're supposed to be like 35.
Wow.
One of them mentions it.
That tracks.
Yeah. So I was just curious. I was like, well, maybe he doesn't talk to his family, or like, well, like I was very curious because I felt bad for him, but I would feel less bad if, like she said, he was like cosplaying as someone without money. So I'm like not sure how I felt. At watching it, I was very much like, oh, well, she was just saying that. But now with you saying it, I'm like, oh no, she wasn't just saying that. So I'm curious. Like now I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel bad for him then. Why was he doing that? Like, I don't.
Yeah. It was a choice. I found it very intriguing. I wish they would have done more with it, though.
I wonder if something got cut that made it make more sense or something like that, because they never talk about it again.
Starting at opposite ends of the seating, Art and Patrick advance through the brackets until they find themselves facing each other in the final. The day before the final match, Patrick attempts to reconnect with Art, but Art rebuffs him. Ian, this gives a lot of credit to your theory about where they are, just in terms.
Right? This scene is basically what like cemented that's my opinion, and that's what's happening. Because Art truly means every mean thing he says. He means it, right? When he's like, I don't know that this is exactly, it's like the Mad Men quote. That's what it is in my head. But when he's like, I think Patrick asked something like, well, blah, blah, when I think of you. And he's like, I don't think of you. Like, I don't care. And I think Art meant it. Like, I don't think Art was just like trying to be, he was also being an asshole, but I think he was like, sometimes the cruelest thing is to be honest, right? I think it's Connor from Angel, Vincent Kartheiser, when he's like, he says something like, I think blah, blah, blah of you. And Don Draper they're in the elevator and he's like, I don't think of you at all.
Ooh. In the first season, before Pete Cooper had to save Don's ass and cover for him. Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
I've never even watched the show, but I'm extremely online. So I've seen that like clip.
Sensing Art's disillusionment, Patrick asks Tashi to coach him to a last winning season. She refuses, but keeps the slip of paper with his number on it. The evening before the final, Art tells Tashi he plans to retire at the end of the season, whether he wins the Open or not. Tashi is unhappy, but reluctantly accepts Art. That night, Tashi secretly meets with Patrick to ask him to throw the match to Art, claiming it to boost his confidence and to save their marriage. Patrick is disgusted, and he and Tashi have a passionate argument before having sex inside his car. He agrees to throw the match. Okay, now I want...
Just laughing because that just sounds so ridiculous when you say
It really does.
It really does. It really does.
Like, this is like a telenovela my grandma would have watched.
And she like spits in his face. There's like these fierce winds blowing. I just think that it's a little... There's garbage everywhere. Oh man, I was so ready
to signify that they're trash
people. Honestly, when this scene happened, I was so ready for the movie to be over. I was so over it.
We already had the threesome scene, and then like it felt like that was the kicker, and everything else was the lead up. And it's like, well, we already got the kicker. Like, we're not gonna get another big. Like, I feel like this should have ended with a really sexy threesome, and it would have like made a little bit more sense. But yeah, I will say a little bit it started to pick up for me, but I was just like, this is getting too straight for something that's like, it felt like the whole conceit, and again, it's 2006, right? But it felt like the whole conceit was, look, Patrick wants to fuck Art and their relationship is homoerotic. And like, it only went downhill with that dynamic moving forward after the hotel scene, right? Because like, then Art marries Tashi, then they're not speaking, and like, I don't know, like, a lot of people's criticism of Saltburn was that they never hooked up, right? We talked about this. Like, it made sense that they didn't hook up. Here, it felt like this is what the movie's about, and they're not hooking up. Like, don't give me a 20-minute tennis match scene, and then they not fuck. Like,
well, Ian, that's what fan fiction is for.
But it should be able to be happening in the actual...
I know. It needs to be. It needs to be. Oh, man. Also, before I move on, I want to say that before I saw this movie in New York City, the beginning of last month, I loved the score. But by the end of this movie, I was so sick of it. I feel like they used it so much. And it felt like the same song after a while. And at some points, it felt like the score came in at an inappropriate moment. I like this score for when they're playing tennis and when things are really, active and physical. But when people are having a conversation, then you just have like, it got a little distracting, and I was getting a little cranky because I was tired in the theater. So
I will say I really like the score. I think
me too. It's a great score.
Awesome scores. But there were some scenes when I was like, wait, we're playing this music a little too loud, and I'm like, Nana can't hear what they're saying. Like, at the end of the sauna scene, the music starts blasting while they're still mid-conversation, and I was like, what? What are they saying?
It's like, damn, y'all really got your money's worth with that score.
I mean, they did.
I brought a notebook into the theater with like a pen and paper, and I was writing notes, and I wrote at one point that the score was giving like Astro Lounge and Mass Effect 2. Like just that pulsating sci-fi video game sort of feel. I just want to quickly, this is the only take I want to give about the sauna scene, is but one of my biggest nitpicks of this movie is that there was not nearly enough sweat on those two men during the sauna scene, which only made it more pronounced when they were literally pouring buckets during their final match. So that's my nitpick. As someone who now frequently goes in a sauna at my gym, it's not enough sweat. I wanted way more sweat on them as they were swinging dick at each other. But anyway, that's my tangent.
Steve's a sauna connoisseur. He knows what Also, swinging dick at each other, very good.
Yeah.
A+
that might have
praise.
Yeah, you're an ally. It also would have impacted my score going forward, but here we are. But I digress. The day of the final, Tashi watches as Art and Patrick play. Patrick wins the first set and Art the second. As Art takes the lead late in the final game, Patrick begins to throw the match through double faults. However, he stops short of losing and instead signals that he had slept with Tashi using Art's serve tick. Stunned, Art allows Patrick to score until they are again tied. During the break, Art and Patrick furiously trade ground strokes, but begin smiling as they continue. The rally intensifies until both jump for a volley at the net. As Art slams the ball over, he collides with Patrick over the net and the two embrace, while Tashi leaps from her seat to cheer for them. That's the movie. It ends on an embrace, and just I will say that I was a big fan of that camera angle where the camera was the tennis ball and it was just going back and forward. That made me lean forward. I was like, oh shit.
The cinematography was gorgeous, right? Like, I feel like throughout the movie, the cinematography was pretty great.
The shot from under the court too was really, really cool that they use, where you're almost like underneath the ground looking up at them, and like you see the lines, but the court was invisible. You see the sky above them. That looked really cool too. However, I have some serious nitpicks about how this movie concluded. If we want to jump right into it, it's also worth saying, because we didn't really like talk much about we just went through the plot of this movie sequentially, but we sort of mentioned the jumpy nature of it all. But I think the main plot structure thing to hook into is that when one of them wins a set, they technically also won Tashi in that moment. So when Patrick takes the first set, that's after he wins in the flashback in the junior championship and he gets Tashi's number and they head into college and they're dating. When Art wins the second set, they're married now and he's he's in the professional setting that he's in. And so you're kind of set up going into this third set being like, okay, like you understand sports. Someone has to win. And so technically nobody won. And I was in a theater that ended up being pretty full, and a couple of people just kind of went, what just happened? Who won? Like, what's the resolution, basically? And so I stepped back, and Erin, who I went and saw this with, had she had the much better 10,000 foot view on it. And she was like, well, if you go back to she saw them embrace each other fully in the relationship of tennis, which was the rabbit she had been chasing ever since that moment that she beat Anna Muller. And so she was celebrating seeing this beautiful love between them come to fruition in this moment of tennis. But I think if you're a person who understands sports and understands the structure of the film and the fact that technically whoever wins the set, I guess, is going to win Tashi, but then no one wins.
Yeah, it was. I just found the ending weird. But also, I wonder if I knew tennis more as a sport, I would have appreciated it way more. When I was watching it, I found myself a little just eyes glazed over, like, okay, we're playing tennis. But one thing that I did think was really charming is the shots of the audience while the tennis ball was going back and forth, and the audience was like,
that's right.
I thought that was cool. And I also loved when they went back to that shot and Tashi wasn't looking back and forth because she knew that like they weren't in it.
Tashi's reaction a little bit confused me, right? Because I thought it was a beautiful fucking shot of him, like slow motion. You think he's hitting the racket. I actually thought he was aiming to hit Patrick. I was like, oh shit, he's gonna like hit him. That's what he's like, so mad he's gonna hit him. But then they embrace and they've embraced already, and we pan to Tashi, and she goes like, fuck, and then she smiles, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm confused with his reaction. Like, I needed, like, one or the other, because I just assumed, I was like, oh, she's furious, and we cut to her, and she is, but then she smiles. Some of this movie felt a little, and I say this about a lot of things I like, and I do think I like this movie, felt a little masturbatory at times when it's like, look, it's a movie with a camera.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I fucking get it. Like, come on. And that felt like a very like capital M, like, or capital C cinema ending where it's like, and I looked up a bunch of like interviews and they said that they kept it ambiguous on purpose. So they wanted it to be like, sure, look, you don't know who won. But like, if we're watching such long tennis matches, what the fuck am I watching them for? And I don't know. I guess I needed just a little bit more. I don't even really need to know who won, but I needed some kind of definitive answer. And this ends with no definitive answer in any sense of any plot that they had. And like I said, if this were a book, I would have loved it when I was like 23. If I revisited it now, 41, I probably would have hated it and been like, man, I was pretentious as shit back then. But yeah, it just like, I don't think we had enough. I don't know. It didn't feel that earned for me of them coming back together, because Art very much did not give a shit every other time they talked about their like history and their relationship. And I could even buy that, like, you know, you said this earlier, Charlie, that like, well, Art maybe would have been down, but he just wasn't pursuing it, but he might have been down. Maybe this was like Art being like, wait a minute, I will suck his dick. But like I needed like something. I don't need a telegraph with people saying it, but I needed just a little bit more of like what is happening. Because like you said, Steve, if, I'm not a tennis fan, I'm not a sports fan, but I'm like, well, that wouldn't happen. That makes no sense. Like they're playing a really important match. And what the fuck happens after they've hugged each other over the net? Like what penalties are like called for that? Like,
well, exactly. So I think if you're going to leave it ambiguous, you need to cut before he makes contact with the ball.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
Because if you see them both in slow motion where like Art is in the air, flying in the air, about to smash the ball down, and you see Patrick about to receive, that's going to mean everything that it means. And you see Tashi looking frightened or excited or whatever, like, if you're going to leave it ambiguous, you can't give us the opportunity to nitpick the fact that there were. So basically, to my understanding of tennis, Art would have lost that point because he went through the net, even though he smashed the ball on the other side of the court. So technically, I don't know if it was, I think it was match point in Art's favor, so it would have gone back to deuce, I think, which means they would have just had to keep playing.
Right, because they can't, it doesn't end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No. So I think Tashi's stand up and yelling the "come on," which is what she yells at the end of her match where she bests Anna Muller, is that same indication of like that is that 15 seconds of beauty.
I completely agree. I think that's what that "come on" was. She saw the connection and she lived vicariously through it.
Exactly. But that said, like, to end the movie there with the rest of it being, I guess the argument for it being ambiguous that I think about it right now is that it doesn't matter. That's the carrot we were chasing, is that beautiful moment of tennis and relationship through it that Tashi sees, rather than who wins and gets to fuck, basically, is what I think we were like maybe hoping for, but that was where the ending went.
I was not chasing that. That's like, I had 0.0, I had negative interest in who the fuck is playing tennis and winning what. Like, you could like be like, we're going to play tennis, fade out, cut to them walking back into the room being like, well, I won that match, and I would be very happy. I just don't need it. And like, I don't know, it takes place with the start of it is what, 2006 we said? That makes sense for like, there's something annoying about, and it's not queer baiting because they do make out and whatever, but like I'm not one of those people that overuses that phrase because I fucking hate when people do that. There was like something that felt a little like Teen Wolf of it all, where it's like, look, these hot guys are shirtless next to each other. They've just once. Ooh, they're looking at each other. Ooh, they're sitting near each other. And it's like, well, great. Well, what are they doing about it? That feels very heterosexual writing queer stories. And again, I don't mean to be that person who's extremely online saying like regurgitating dumb bullshit buzz phrases. And I'm trying not to be, but like, for me, it's like, just suck his dick or don't. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? Because I was not chasing the high of tennis. I was interested in the dynamic. If anything, I had no interest in Zendaya's character's, Tashi's. I mean, she didn't really have an arc, right? She kind of was the same throughout most of it. And I would have liked to be more interested in her character, but I just was not. Have either of you, I think I brought this up in our Saltburn recording, so now I'm just repeating myself. Have either of you read a separate piece by John Knowles? Because again, that whole book, I read it in high school and then I read it in undergrad, and my critique of that book was those boys needed to hook up. Like, I remember in a writing class in college, I said, well, they didn't have sex, so I don't know what the point of this book was, because it's like a homoerotic friendship that leads to the one kid they always like jumped in a lake from a tree. And the big climax of the book is the guy who was in love with his straight best friend pushes and he shakes the branch they're on. So he falls and he ends up paralyzing himself. That is the end of that book. And I have never that made me so angry reading it. Cause it's like, we spent a whole book on a homoerotic relationship. And instead of just letting them hook up, the guy gets paralyzed. That's what we end on. And I those are stories that I'm very tired of. And I said at the top, I'm okay with it being a gay guy's in love with the straight guy has no interest. I'm okay with that because that happens, right? But I don't know. And this happens too, I'm sure. There's homoeroticism and nothing, it doesn't go anywhere. But as a plot, as a movie, I don't know, what would you all say is the point of this? What is the, what story are we telling if we're ending on that? Is that too grumpy? That might be.
I think
Don't
the
ask
point,
me.
the point,
Ask me
the
questions.
point of
Can't
this
answer.
movie is have an open marriage and go to therapy.
You know, that is definitely the lesson from this. It's like just have three
Charlie.
Pretty much.
The point of challengers is just have.
Just have it. Just have it. But yeah, I think that's as great a point as any to go to our, and I'm such a nerd, our racket ratings for, so
So good.
Ian, you can go first. 1 out of 5, 1 to 5 rackets. Like, what do you judge this movie? Like, what's your racket rating?
I know I've complained a lot about it, but also I do think it was like a gorgeous movie. Everyone's acting was A+. So I think I would give it, I don't know that it's a movie. I told Steve this before recording that like, this is a movie I felt like I needed to watch like 2 or 3 times to see actually where I landed on how I felt about it. But I have no interest in watching it that many more times. But I still think, I don't know, I'm like maybe a 2.5, maybe a 3 racket, somewhere in there. Because I do think it was like even if I don't love all the plot, I think it was a really well-made movie. Maybe not for me, like maybe it's just not a movie for me, which is okay. But I do think it was like well-made and well put together and blah, blah, blah. So I can't I don't know. Yeah, so 2.5 or 3, somewhere in the middle there.
Steve?
We'll make 3/4 of a racket for you. First of all, before I give my racket rating, Ian, I'd just like to pitch you on a new show idea. Just suck his dick or don't. An examination of queer baiting in media. Seems that's my free show idea for you.
Thank
Take
you.
that or leave it however you want. Yeah, of course. I think I'm gonna give this one 2 rackets. It was tough to follow. I think it does give capital M movie vibes, but I think my biggest problem was it told us for 2 hours that tennis was the most important thing until it blatantly ignored the tennis at the end. And I think that was hard for me to get over, especially walking out of the movie. It like really caused me to miss the point until Aaron and I talked about it. And I like actually had time to like read the wiki back and just figure out what had happened for myself. Maybe because I was so distracted by the fact that he had flown through the net and we're just not going to, and we fade to black. So it's a dose rackets for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna land on giving this 2.5 rackets. Yeah, this film it's not a no for me. I liked parts of it, but it didn't really grip me. You know, I didn't really care. I was titillated. And I was interested in like where all the homoeroticism would go, but then it went nowhere. Then everybody was mean and facetious and underhanded, which I feel like is something that audiences eat up nowadays, given like how successful Succession was. And just, I'm not somebody who enjoys just 2+ hours of people being nasty to each other. So I don't think this movie was really my cup of tea. But at the same time, performances were great. The writing is nothing to shrug at, because having to juggle all those time periods and figure out what every character would be thinking and feeling is really hard. So my hat's off to Justin, who did a wonderful job with the screenplay. I also loved the director so much. I definitely loved Call Me By Your Name a lot more, because there was a love story, an actual love story to latch onto.
And even that, I will say, there was times when I was like, is this boring? But
then I loved it, you know? And also that film was just showing, they were in Italy, right? Okay, yeah, that great Italy, somewhere exotic.
We're dumb Americans.
Yeah, we're stupid Americans. We need to get a map of the world as a shower curtain to get better at geography. But yeah, it was okay.
Charlie, can I ask you a question? If Art and Patrick had sex in the first act of the movie, do you think you would have been more invested in like the overall arc of everything, just knowing that there was that underlying like physical evidence of their affection for each other that they maybe could have like used a little bit more in the triangle of it all? Because I think something that was missing for me, and I think we talked about it, is the fact that like Art disconnects himself from Patrick and only focuses on Tashi, while it seems like Patrick's focused on both of them? Like, do you think that was what was missing, or do you think it was something?
I don't even know if it had to be sex per se, but more scenes together in present day,
Sure.
more care. Like, I think I heard something really important a really long time ago about writing and what makes great stories great. What makes a great story great is when at least two characters really care about each other. And I didn't get that from this movie. It felt pretty cold. Like, one character cared about another character.
Yeah, Patrick cared.
Like, Tashi didn't care. Art felt like a simp for Tashi.
I want to answer your question, Steve, because I feel like if it ended, they embrace on the court, and then we find out that they are fucking and they are together, that would have been a way more gratifying
Agreed.
for me. I don't know that would have been earned in the movie we had. I don't know that them reconnecting was even earned, because I felt like Art truly did not give a shit about him. So I don't know.
Yeah, they would have really had to explain the connection that tennis opens up between people more than just that one line that Tashi gives us.
Everyone has like a
movie
boner when they're playing tennis.
When you're also all waiting for them to make out with each other, she's explaining this. So I don't think that's what you're concentrating on in that.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, Ian, once again, thank you so much for joining us. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Like always, do you want to tell our lovely listeners where they can find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Ian X Carlos. And if you want to follow my podcast, SlayerFest98, we are at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms. And we are on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else.
Excellent.
And Patreon, right?
Oh, yeah. And I have a Patreon, which we're going through X-Men the Animated Series, which I plan to have Charlie and Steve on for, and the Batman the Animated Series too.
Very, very cool. Well, as always, thank you for joining us, and a goodbye from myself and my good friend, Steve Selnick. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.